Welcome to the Malfunction Radio, powered by God Access. I'm Genesis, your guide into the chaos of cybersecurity, pen testing, and red teaming. From hacking systems to exposing vulnerabilities, we're here to break things and build them back stronger. If it's not malfunctioning, we're not doing it right. Now, over to your hosts, Adam and Eve, for today's breakdown.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into a story that really sits at the intersection of digital forensics and some pretty old school detective work. Our mission is to take a look at a really sophisticated cross-border financial scam, one that was, designed from the ground up to be completely untraceable, and we're going to pull back the curtain on how it all worked.
That's exactly right. We're diving into a real-world case study here. I mean, this is a detailed, step-by-step forensic analysis of how a highly organized criminal network was actually operating.
Right.
And these groups, they really thrive on a psychological reality. They assume that you, the victim, are going to be too overwhelmed, maybe too ashamed, or too discouraged by all the bureaucracy to fight back once your money is gone.
So they're counting on inaction.
They bake impunity right into their business model as part of the plan.
And we're going to show that impunity is, well, it's really an illusion. We're using a single, relatively small loss, a 45,000 scam, which is about, $500 US?
Around that, yeah.
And we're using that as the initial spark for a full-scale open-source intelligence hunt, an OSINT hunt. We're going to map their entire infrastructure, all the layers of misdirection, and get this, we reveal the physical location of the people pulling the strings.
Yeah, and we should probably set the stage with the hard truth right up front.
Okay.
The money was not recovered.
Yeah.
That is just the frustrating reality of going up against this kind of decentralized financial crime. But the value here is the intelligence that was gathered. We got definitive proof of the ring's operational methods, the sheer efficiency of their identity shell game, and most crucially, their precise geographical location. We found the ghost in the machine.
Let's start at the beginning then, what we're calling ground zero, the social engineering attack, because this is really where the vulnerability began and where trust was first, weaponized. The whole investigation kicked off on a Tuesday evening, October 15th, 2024.
So the initial target was a man named Mr. Sharma. He was the father of a friend of the investigator. In this case, it immediately highlights how these scammers pick their targets.
How so?
They look for people who are, inclined to be helpful, trusting, especially when they think there's a family emergency on the line.
And the pretext they used here was just brilliant in its simplicity and its effectiveness. Mr. Sharma gets a message on Facebook Messenger.
Right.
The account is impersonating a legitimate relative, a Mr. Naveen, who actually lived abroad. And they use this really sophisticated touch. The account had the correct profile picture, and this is critical, it shared several mutual friends with Mr. Sharma.
So that immediately lowers his guard. It looks real.
Completely.
And the scammers, they just don't waste a second. They immediately deploy what we call the urgency weapon.
Emergency.
The emergency. The relative claims he's stuck at the Canada Immigration Office. A high-stakes, time-sensitive situation.
Yeah.
There are immediate paperwork issues, fees that need to be paid right now.
Yeah.
And this kind of bureaucratic nightmare, mixed with the pressure of family obligation, it's just specifically designed to circumvent rational thought.
Yeah.
You stop analyzing, you just start trying to rescue them.
Okay, so here's where we see the first tactical shift. And looking back, it's just this massive red flag. The conversation moves immediately from Facebook Messenger to WhatsApp. Why is that specific move so important for the scammers? What's the advantage there?
It's all about control and anonymity. Facebook is an established, somewhat traceable platform. If you report a profile, they have to deal with Facebook's own security measures.
Right.
WhatsApp, on the other hand, it just requires a phone number, which can be totally disposable, a burner. And it lets them control the entire narrative privately, away from the digital memory of a social network.
And they just framed it to Mr. Sharma as a need for privacy.
Exactly. Or convenience.
Yeah.
Let's take this offline to discuss this urgent immigration matter. It sounds plausible.
And once he's on WhatsApp, Mr. Sharma isn't even talking to his relative anymore.
No. Now he's communicating with someone named Harinder Singh, who's supposedly the coordinator on the ground, directing the whole rescue operation.
So that's the first moment of deliberate separation. He's now dealing with a middleman.
Which makes it psychologically harder to reconnect this whole interaction back to that initial family request. It adds a layer of professionalism, of legitimacy.
The urgency was kept up all through the night. The scammers, they initially asked for a large sum of money, but fortunately, Mr. Sharma's bank limits kicked in during that first transfer attempt.
Yeah, that restriction, it inadvertently limited the initial damage. Only 20,000 went through. It's almost ironic, you know. The frustrating bank security measures actually protected him from a much bigger loss at first.
But these guys are relentless. They see that 20,000 as what, a down payment?
A sign of commitment. They know he's on the hook. So by the evening, Harinder Singh is back with another urgent plea. New complications, more fees. The relative is still stuck.
And Mr. Sharma, he's emotionally invested now. He feels like he has to finish what he started.
Of course. So he sends the second transfer, another 25,000, and that brings the total loss to 45,000.
The scam only fell apart when Mr. Sharma went to his son to ask for more money.
Right. And the son, he instantly recognized the hallmarks of a scam. The sudden urgent need for cash, the requirement to use some unfamiliar bank account, the inability to actually call the person who's supposedly in distress. The son's gut reaction was that critical turning point.
So the son, he took the immediate correct steps. He tried calling the scammer, rushed to the local police. But what was the reality when he actually got to the authorities?
The police, their experience with the sheer volume of these cases, they directed him to the online cyber cell to file a formal complaint.
So follow the procedure.
Follow the procedure. And while all those steps were followed, the reality quickly set in. These types of financial scams have just notoriously low recovery rates, especially when the funds are moved instantly. It's a race against time that law enforcement, unfortunately, often loses.
And that's the point where I guess desperation shifts to a kind of intellectual curiosity.
Exactly. The friend reached out for OSINT help. The objective was no longer about the money. That was probably gone. But it was about intelligence.
The mission became mapping the entire architecture of this operation to prove who they were and how they did it.
We needed to understand the complexity we were really dealing with. And that leads us directly into our second part. Peeling the onion, the labyrinth of fake identities.
Right.
And the first rule of this kind of investigation is to treat every single piece of data, a name, a number, a screenshot, as a potential clue.
Okay, so let's start with layer one, the bait. This disposable Facebook profile impersonating the relative, Mr. Naveen. What did the digital forensics tell you about this account?
Well, it was an instant red flag because it was digitally sterile. Yeah. Real people, we accumulate years of digital residue, right? Old posts, random comments you made, forgotten photos you were tagged in. This profile was just empty. It lacked all of that accumulated digital history. It was a prop created solely for this scam.
But the critical clue, the one that really defined their operational speed, was the profile picture's upload date.
That's where the analysis becomes, frankly, a little frightening. The photo they used to impersonate Mr. Naveen was uploaded on October 14th, 2024.
And the scam started?
On October 15th.
Yeah.
Very next day.
Yeah.
So this wasn't some old hacked account. This was a purpose-built, weaponized identity created just one day before they launched the attack.
Yeah.
It speaks to an operational team that can just spin up bespoke identities on demand.
Unbelievable. Okay, so moving to layer two. The WhatsApp number and the stolen professional identity.
Right.
The number itself, when they checked it on Truecaller, it revealed the name Gita Desai, a name completely unrelated to the relative or to this Harinder Singh character.
So we're already up to 3 different names tied to this one conversation.
Exactly. But the profile picture on WhatsApp, that was the truly audacious part of the deception. It wasn't Gita Desai.
No, it was a high-resolution professional photo of a Sikh gentleman in a turban. A reverse image search revealed the whole story. The photo was stolen from a Mr. Harjeet Singh, who's a well-known researcher and, get this, an assistant commissioner at the Australian Taxation Office.
Wow. Why choose such a specific high-profile identity? Why not just use a random stock photo of a guy in a suit?
It's about calculated credibility. By stealing the photo of a legitimate, high-level professional, they immediately inject this air of trustworthiness and corporate authority into the conversation. The victim is thinking, wow, this Harinder Singh guy must be a real professional coordinator if he looks like this.
It elevates the scam's perceived legitimacy.
Instantly. This is professional identity theft, not some amateur fakery.
Okay, now we follow the money. Layer 3, the payment infrastructure. The first transaction, the 20,000, involved a QR code payment. The associated number, +91 923 597 1923, was linked to something called Pradhuman Shop. And when the code was scanned during the payment process, the name Pradhuman Pandey appeared.
So we have a shop name and a person's name, But when the investigator ran that exact same number through Truecaller,
it came back with a different name.
a third unrelated name, Kunal Rajpar. So you have 1 point of payment, but 3 distinct names associated with it. This is deliberate noise designed to confuse any investigation right from the start.
And the physical location of this Pradhuman shop, did that check out?
Well, Google Maps located it in Dwarka, New Delhi. The mapping suggested it was permanently closed. The images showed an old, locked house with a shop shutter in a dense, kind of neglected neighborhood.
So a perfect sketchy front.
A perfect front. Physically plausible, but totally defunct, yet somehow it still has an active banking connection that's associated with the UPI or QR system.
Which brings us to the final stop for the money. Layer 4, the bank account, the final cash-out point for the $45,000. The recipient was listed as Mr. Subhas Garai.
Right, and the investigator successfully traced the bank details. The IFSC code, which is the Indian Financial System Code, basically a unique ID for bank branches, MAHB 00001336, traced the account to a very specific Bank of Maharashtra branch.
And where is that branch located?
Durgapur, West Bengal. And this is the crucial geographical fragmentation.
Just lay this out.
Okay, so you have an impersonation set up to mimic a crisis in Canada.
Right.
The communication is being managed by someone using a stolen Australian identity. The payment is initiated through a link to a defunct shop in New Delhi.
And the money finally settles in a bank in West Bengal.
Thousands of miles apart.
Let's just pause and appreciate the complexity here. We have 5 distinct, completely unrelated identities scattered across thousands of miles. A fake Facebook profile, a disposable WhatsApp registration, a stolen professional's photo, a multi-named payment channel, and a final mule account holder. What is the strategic purpose of fragmenting it this much?
It's the ultimate defense mechanism against any kind of standard police procedure.
How so?
Well, if Mr. Sharma reports the fraud, the local police, they might trace the UPI payment to this Pradhuman Pandey in Delhi. But Pradhuman Pandey is probably just a mule who sold his credentials for a few thousand rupees. He doesn't know anything.
He's a dead end.
He's a dead end. And by the time authorities even try to move up that chain, the actual scammer operating the script is entirely disconnected, probably in another country, and the funds have already been moved out of Subhas Garai's account in West Bengal. The masterminds are protected by all these layers of disposable pawns and sheer geographical distance.
And that is exactly why the focus had to shift from recovery to intelligence. I mean, since the money was likely gone and the paper trail was designed to lead nowhere, the mission became an active one.
Right.
So we move now to part 3. The hunters become the hunted, setting the GPS trap.
This is where we shift from, passive data collection to active social engineering. We're trying to lure the scammer into revealing their true location.
And crucially, the scammers were still messaging the friend. They were still trying to squeeze out that final payment.
Their greed gave us our opening.
To pull this off, the investigator used a specialized OSINT tool called Seeker. What exactly is Seeker, and why was it so necessary? Why not just use a simple IP logger?
Well, an IP address on its own isn't that useful. It only tells you the approximate location of the Internet Service Provider, the ISP, which could be hundreds of miles from where the scammer is actually sitting.
Okay.
Seeker is fundamentally different. It mimics a web page, and it asks the user's browser for location permission. Once they grant that, it bypasses the network IP completely and uses the actual GPS hardware in their device, their phone, their laptop, to grab a hyper-accurate longitude and latitude.
And what level of accuracy are we talking about here?
It's talking approximately 30 meters.
Yeah.
This is the difference between knowing the scammer is somewhere in a big city versus knowing they're standing in a specific house.
Wow.
And what's more, Seeker captures a ton of data even if they don't grant location permission.
So it creates a digital fingerprint. What kind of data is instantly captured?
Oh, it includes the Canvas fingerprinting ID, which is a unique digital signature of the device based on how its graphics card renders images. It gets the device model, the OS, the platform, approximate CPU cores and RAM, screen resolution, GPU info, and both the public and the local IP addresses.
So this fingerprint is crucial because you can identify that specific device again, even if they change their VPN or clear their cookies.
Exactly. You're tracking the machine, not just the connection.
So we have the weapon. Now, for the really crucial part. The social engineering pretext. How do you convince a presumably cautious scammer to click a link and grant location permission?
You leverage their greatest motivator, their greed and their desperation. The setup was to convince the scammer that the final UPI payment kept failing because of a technical error.
Ah, so you flip the script.
You flip the script.
Yeah.
You immediately shift the scammer from being a predator to being a frustrated technician who needs to solve a problem to get paid.
And the friend, he played his part perfectly, just stalling the payment, letting the scammer's anxiety build.
Right. And when the scammer asked for the error details, the friend deployed this crucial piece of misdirection.
What was that?
He claimed, I can't take a screenshot in my PhonePe app because of the security settings on my phone. And this is a highly believable claim, right? A lot of financial apps block screenshots for security.
That's true, yeah.
So it makes the scammer frustrated, but it keeps him focused on troubleshooting, not on suspicion.
And the solution he offered was?
The friend said, I took a photo of the error with a different phone, and I uploaded to Google Drive. I can send you the link so you can see the error code. And the scammer, who is desperate for that final payment, agrees instantly. They just see this as a minor technical hurdle, not a trap.
Okay, so let's get into the technical execution. How do you turn a local OSINT tool like Seeker into a public-facing trap that someone in another country can click on?
Right, so first the investigator uploaded a legitimate-looking PhonePe error screenshot to an actual public Google Drive link. Then he fed that legitimate Google Drive URL into Seeker. And Seeker spun up a local server on his machine, ready to serve the bait page, which looks like a simple request to access the image.
But since the scammer is remote, you needed a public address for that local server. That's where Xerox came in, right?
Correct. Xerox is what's called a tunneling service. It lets you securely turn a private local server address like 127.0.1 on your own machine into a public, globally accessible URL. This is essential because the scammer is far away, likely across international borders, and you need them to be able to connect to your system.
And finally, the link was run through Grabify first. Why that extra layer?
It was a necessary safety net, a fallback plan. Grabify is a simple IP logger. So if the scammer clicked the link but then refused the location permission request from Seeker, we'd at least still capture their IP address and all that associated system data.
I see.
And we customized the Grabify URL to look totally innocuous, like a real photo sharing site. Something like photovault.piximage.php. It just adds another layer of legitimacy and hides the logging function.
So the link was sent. The scammer clicks the customized Grabify link. What happens at that exact moment?
Instantly, the scammer's IP address is logged. That's the first piece of crucial data. Then they're immediately redirected and presented with the fake Google Drive interface that Seeker generated, which prompts them to request access to view content. And at the same time, the browser pops up, the location permission request.
This is the moment of tension. Did they grant it right away?
No. They hesitated. They were not completely naive. The initial location request was denied. They smelled something was off.
Uh-oh.
But here's where the human element, their own greed, became their undoing. The friend quickly sent a follow-up message, emphasizing how close they were to sending the final payment and urging them, just click OK so we can see the error and I can send the money.
The pressure worked.
The pressure worked. The scammer, driven by the lure of that final payment, clicked again and, critically, granted permission to share their physical location. The coordinates, along with all the detailed device information, just instantly flooded into the investigator's console. The trap was sprung.
And to maintain the illusion, what did Seeker do immediately after capturing all that data?
It seamlessly redirected the scammer to the actual PhonePe error screenshot on the real Google Drive link. So from the scammer's perspective, they just successfully troubleshooted the problem and were now one step closer to getting paid. They had no idea they had just handed over their exact physical location.
This is where the investigation yields just this incredible intelligence. Part 4. The revelation from a Paris VPN to a Lahore village.
Right.
The data collected from Grabify and Seeker told two conflicting stories that when you put them together revealed the truth.
Let's start with the Grabify data, the IP address. The public IP came back as Paris, France. Now, this immediately tells the investigator two things. First, they're using a VPN for virtual private network. And second, they are actively trying to appear as if they're operating from a jurisdiction far away from the victim's region. A lot of investigators might have just stopped there and logged the location as Paris.
But the devil was in the details that the VPN failed to mask.
Precisely. This is a classic operational security failure. While the VPN hides the network connection, the IP, it often fails to mask the internal device configuration. The system data logs, the metadata that Grabify captured, showed that the device time zone and the system clock were set to Asia, Karachi, Pakistan.
So the computer was connected through Paris, but the user was operating on Pakistan time.
The device itself betrayed the user's true general geography. But the final irrefutable confirmation came from that hyper-accurate GPS pinpoint from Seeker.
The actual coordinates.
The actual coordinates were definitive.
Right.
31.4174267, 74.1569783. Mapping those coordinates immediately placed the device in Lahore, Pakistan.
And what did that specific pin drop reveal about their operational environment? Was it a high-tech office building?
Not at all. It wasn't the city center. It was a rural settlement or an outskirt village, far from the polished, developed areas. The investigator cross-referenced the coordinates with satellite and map imagery. There was no Google Street View available, which confirms it's an underdeveloped area. The imagery showed narrow, maze-like streets, small local buildings. It was a very specific, remote environment. This was the physical confirmation. A house in a village on the outskirts of Lahore running a sophisticated identity fraud operation targeting victims thousands of miles away.
That is just immense. From a single urgent message to an exact physical location in a remote village in Pakistan. So how did the scammer react to being exposed?
Well, the investigator's friend messaged Harinder Singh with the location data, the coordinates, and the name of the nearest recognizable landmark, which was a small supermarket. The professional facade just dropped. Instantly. The response was a flurry of aggressive, defensive messages, nationalist slurs, cursing. They knew their game was up.
And the immediate aftermath. They just vanished.
They went completely offline shortly after that confrontation. That specific number, the Harinder Singh persona, and likely that entire batch of mule accounts were instantly abandoned. Their operation was compromised, and they had to retreat and start over with new, disposable infrastructure.
This incredible piece of intelligence, though, it raises the most critical question about the crime's architecture.
Right.
How are individuals in a village in Lahore operating these sophisticated scams using Indian financial systems? Indian bank accounts, Indian UPI systems, Indian phone numbers. This leads us to the conclusion about the internal structure, what the source calls the generals.
Yeah, we have to understand the operational hierarchy here. The individuals we pinpointed in Lahore are what you'd call the foot soldiers, or the pawns.
The frontline workers.
They're the frontline workers. They're the ones handling the conversation and the social engineering. They're reading the scripts, managing the WhatsApp chat, initiating the contact. They are likely young, maybe underprivileged, recruited for quick, disposable cash.
So their job is to run the interface, but they are totally separate from the money itself.
Exactly. They are disposable because if the phone number or the chat gets reported, the financial infrastructure, the bank accounts, that all remains intact. And they're also out of reach of Indian law enforcement, which creates a really nice safety buffer for the overall organization.
But if they're just the pawns, who are the generals and what is their role in this system?
The real architects, the generals. They're the supply chain managers. They're the ones who procure and control all the critical Indian infrastructure. And think about the complexity of that task.
Right.
They need a constant supply of mule accounts, like Mr. Subhasgarai's bank account in West Bengal, which requires KYC verification in India. They need Indian UPI access points, and they need a steady stream of Indian phone numbers.
That implies a massive, trusted, and probably corrupt network operating inside India, feeding this infrastructure to the generals who are outside the country.
It absolutely does. The generals manage the logistics, the payments to the pawns, and crucially, the instant movement of funds out of those mule accounts before they can be frozen. The entire system is a deliberate shell game designed to make tracing the masterminds impossible. We found the pawn who ran the script, but the master key to the whole operation, the network that's supplying the Indian bank accounts, that remains hidden.
That is truly the key takeaway. The organizational planning involved in setting up these fragmented digital trails it's equivalent to running a highly sophisticated transnational corporation that's focused purely on deception. So let's wrap this up. Part 5. The takeaways fighting back with knowledge. What was the net outcome of this immense, and I'd say successful, OSINT effort?
The official outcome remains pretty sobering. The money, the $45,000, was gone. It vanished instantly. However, the investigator provided the cyber cell with every single piece of evidence that was gathered. The profiles, the account details, the IP and system data, and of course the precise GPS coordinates in Lahore.
Did that concrete evidence help law enforcement at all? I mean, a GPS pin seems pretty solid.
It certainly elevated the case internally. It provided clear proof of the organization's foreign origin and their sophisticated methods. But the reality of cross-border jurisdiction meant the case eventually just went cold. Recovery rates for these types of frauds remain dismal because the crime is transnational, but the enforcement is local.
But the most valuable gain wasn't financial, it was intellectual, it was knowledge.
Absolutely. Mr. Sharma and his entire family, they gained permanent, actionable knowledge. They are now hypervigilant. And the key lesson here, and the lesson we really must impart to you, the listener, is to question urgency. Urgency is the single biggest weapon scammers use. They inject panic to bypass your rational analysis. When someone screams emergency, that is the precise moment you must slow down and verify everything.
And the practical red flags that were confirmed by this case.
Well, first, the move from a verified, established platform like Facebook to an unverified channel like WhatsApp is a massive warning sign.
Okay.
Second, the sudden introduction of a coordinator or a middleman, this Harinder Singh character, who is not the original relative. This shields the core scammer, and it just complicates any attempted verification.
And the verification protocol is so simple, yet it's often overlooked because of that panic they induce.
It is. If a friend or a relative asks you for money, even if the message looks totally legitimate, you must call them and hear their voice.
And if they claim they can't talk?
If they claim they are in a situation where they absolutely cannot speak, they're stuck in a meeting at an immigration office in a loud emergency, that is the biggest red flag of all. No real emergency is so urgent that someone can't spare 30 seconds for a voice confirmation or at least a quick live video call.
The final analysis on the sophistication level here is crucial. This operation used layered identity theft, stealing a high-profile professional's photo, securing mule accounts thousands of miles away, but the actual execution was done by essentially entry-level workers just running scripts.
And this tells us that modern fraud doesn't require a genius. It just requires scalable, repeatable processes, disposable personnel, and a supply chain for stolen or rented digital assets. Getting caught by this organization doesn't make Mr. Sharma unintelligent. It means he was targeted by a highly organized professional fraud industry that is designed specifically to exploit human trust and goodwill.
And the encouraging conclusion of this whole investigation is the proof that they are not invisible. They might hide behind Paris VPNs, but the digital footprints, the system clock, the GPS hardware in their phone, it will betray them. With the right persistence and the right OSINT tools, the veil can be pierced and the organization can be mapped. That truly concludes our deep dive into tracking the untraceable. From a single urgent Facebook message to a physical pin on a map in a Lahore village, we've seen the sheer power of open-source intelligence to dismantle the digital deception that these cross-border criminals rely on.
You know, we found the disposable foot soldiers by tracking a 45,000 transaction. But let's leave the listener with his provocative thought. If the pawns are so easily found when we dedicate the resources, what level of resources, legal, technical, and political, does it take to find the actual architects?
The true generals.
The true generals who control the network of compromised Indian bank accounts and who weaponize trust on a massive global scale.
It's a sobering realization that the criminal enterprise itself dedicates these immense resources to the crime, while victim recovery and justice, they operate on minimal resources. But knowledge is power. Verify everything, trust your instincts, and use the knowledge we've shared today to protect yourself. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thank you for tuning into the Malfunction Radio, powered by God Access. That was a great breakdown from Adam and Eve. It's been a pleasure guiding you through today's deep dive into the world of cybersecurity and red teaming. Remember, if it's not malfunctioning, we're not doing it right. Stay curious, stay secure, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye!